Well, hello, that's me again, and today I will try to do things a little bit in a short way. Let's try this because you probably can see pretty serious issue with my tooth, which has been fixed now, but yeah, I'm still kind of all swollen. But let me start with a simple thing today. I do not watch all those press conferences anymore, especially when those press conferences are conducted by people like Mr. Blinken, who is the Secretary of the State of the United States, and especially when Mr. Lavrov is involved. Russians have a very popular anecdote about Lavrov. And it's gonna sound a little bit rough. So if you have children near the screen of your computer or whatever, just there will be a profanity. But anecdote goes like this: in famous Moscow Institute of the International Relations, MGIMO, students are given the task to write the note of protestation to some abstract country. And so they do it, this task, and give their works, their notes, to be graded by the professor. So professor comes next day and says, okay, here are the notes written by our students, and they are, they're good notes, but I want to single out one note by the student named Sergei Lavrov. Sergei Lavrov, please get up. It is an excellent note which you wrote, but I want to tell you that "go fuck yourself" is written separately, while "asshole" is written together. So that's the anecdote about Sergei Viktorovich Lavrov, and it actually flows very nicely into the fundamental thing, which is any people who have a mind of serious experts and analysts. And this is basically treason by, well, I can tell you, Russian military. I'm pretty sure that same goes for the American military. Is that no matter what you say, or no matter how you state your intentions, however peaceful, the only thing serious people look at the potential, military-industrial potential. Period. I can bloviate here and about how nice I am or whatever I want to do. If I have a potential which is very serious, you have to be viewed in a completely different framework than some baloney, which is usually the show for the public by foreign ministers or whatever you can say about any kind of the diplomacy. But here's the interesting thing. What people call Russian non-ultimatum, which in reality it is ultimatum, is the thing which United States haven't been able to face. Russians did one very important thing. They brought out the whole discussion into the public sphere. The whole intent and the whole vector, so to speak, of the American administration was for many years, it pretty much goes without saying for anything, what is being discussed on the international arena, is to keep the substantive part secret, under wraps and non-public. This is done in the United States for only one reason. No, it's not done to kind of cover up the necessary details which simple people or laymen are not supposed to know. It is done for a simple reason: to prevent any sign of America's weakness to become public. Russians know that. They knew it all the time, and that is why they pull out this ultimatum to make it very public. And that's what Lavrov was asking of Mr. Blinken, and he got the answer that the written answer on Russian proposals about Russia's national security will be given next week. Written, no less. And that's what I repeat. I reiterate the same point over and over again, that once made public, you cannot go back on it. I mean, it's fixed in the space and time, and that's when I have to also go back to yesterday when Mr. Blinken was given his remarks. Hilarious, really. And I have to admit that not only he looked very depressed, but his address to Russian people was risible and hilarious at the same time, because he was asking Russians not to invade Russian people and threatening them with a horrible war which they will not win because, well, I assume CIA, MI6, whatever, NATO will be supporting the guerrilla movement in whatever the part of Ukraine. It is hilarious because there is so much, it's not misunderstanding. I don't think so they are capable of thinking straight anymore there in State Department, because it's the organization which is staffed by lawyers whose only task is not to say something which is not scripted, and of course to run the and to give justification for the constant repeat of the same BS which they do. And his appearance and the way he was addressing quote-unquote Russian nation was absolutely hilarious, because obviously Russian nation, as majority of Russians, they don't want Ukraine and they don't need Ukraine. And the explanation to this is very simple. I don't know if they teach that in any international relations programs. I doubt the quality of those in the United States for a long time now. But actually, in the times of imperialism and original accumulation of capital, the taking of the colonies and expanding markets was the main task, and for the colonial powers of metropolis, and that was understandable. Today, I mean, basically taking anything as your part of your country, if your country lives much better and much more richer than what you're taking as a colony or what have you, means only one thing: you're going to be losing the standard of living in your metropolis, and that's not a good idea. And that's what is the relation between Ukraine and Russia is. Evidently, and again, as any kind of humanities field in the West nowadays, I have huge doubts about the quality of people and study which is provided there. And a real economy doesn't work like this. And that's what they don't understand, the State Department or CIA even, and that Russian economy is a self-sustained system. Russians do not want anyone on their balance. They don't want to pay for them. That is why when they say ideas of the USSR 2.0, they are stupid ideas. Russians were the main donors of those 14 republics during the Soviet times. And it took the collapse of the Soviet Union for Russians to recognize, oh my God, we've been basically paying, bar some few exceptions, we were paying for freeloaders who contributed very little, and which is true. And then when Russia actually accumulated and achieved a substantial growth of her industries, it's become absolutely patently clear it's what was going on. That's why Russians do not want USSR 2.0. But security-wise, obviously, they don't want anybody getting there in and around of the former Soviet territories, because it is not just economic, it is purely security issue. But again, I'm not sure that State Department, they know history. I don't think so. They teach proper military history in their U.S. universities or whatever the programs they prepare for international relations. And it's really the serious issue, because whatever is being taught is two-dimensional. But what has to be remembered, no American military serviceman, just remember this, and no officer, highest officer, general, admiral, colonel, major, or whatever private, no American serviceman ever fought in defense of their country. There were never battles of their Panzer Corps or Panzer Army surrounding Chicago, or strategic bombing of Boston. Never was. And that is why it's like trying to explain to a kindergarten that, guys, You don't understand what continental warfare is. Even those of you who supposedly know what it is, you don't. You can inflict pain, but yeah, bar some military casualties. That is as much as goes back. This is different. For Russians, it is different. And each family in Russia, literally every family in Russia has somebody who fought on the fronts of the World War II, and those memories are still alive. This is the cultural distinction which Americans, most of them, they cannot grasp. Only very educated and well-intentioned American people, they do get it. But again, in the country where such military mediocrity as George S. Patton is considered a great general, I mean, you cannot convey what real war is, including to the people in the U.S. Armed Forces who always see it from the point of view of those who deliver the punishment. They don't understand what it is to be on the receiving end. And when you begin to talk about it, there is suddenly sensitivity and complex of inferiority begins to open, and that's the thing which they don't get. It's cultural barrier which is practically impossible to cross in the modern Western elites. This is how they convince themselves that they're so great, they're finest force in the fighting force in the history, and they're the greatest country which ever lived, while in reality the only reason, well, not the only, but the major reason, one of the driving forces behind fairly short-lived, in historic terms, American prosperity, it was basically based on its security, its insulation from the war. Now, when you have the situation that basically Lavrov really, like in this anecdote, says, okay, next week, please give us written whatever you want to answer. Russians say that they don't care really. They know that it was bound to fail. So next week, I assume United States and NATO will have to give the written whatever refusal of Russian proposal. And that's when the real game starts, because Russia will be taking care of the issues related to her national security, as basically even Lavrov and Ryabkov say, by military technical means. I will make some special video dedicated to that. I need to draw things and create some graphics here to give the understanding what those military technical measures will be. And it has to be understood that Russia has options. Those options are predicated on the behavior of NATO, but they are also driven by the fact which is being also hidden from the public, the same as there were attempts to hide any kind of negotiations, including secret negotiations between the United States and Russia, of the major loss of the arms race by the combined West. It's not just quality of the airplanes or weapon systems. It's more than that. It's doctrinal and operational adaptation of the realities. The United States failed to adapt to those realities, and that's what constitutes great powers. And some people say there are now 6 amphibious vessels from Baltic and Black Sea steaming to whatever in the Atlantic, going somewhere. People say, oh, it might be Cuba, it might be Venezuela. I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to this, because in the end, Russia has all means, and by 2024, she will have overwhelming number of means to create a really serious and exploit very serious vulnerabilities of the United States proper. I'm not talking about Europe. Europe now is just basically hostage in case of the real serious military conflagration. So, but in the end, everything remains the same, as Led Zeppelin used to sing. The song remains the same. Russia doesn't need Ukraine, and the only thing Blinken can offer to Ukraine is, and it's the only one, is to start the war with Russia. That's the position of the United States. The United States needs war desperately for a number of reasons. I listed some of those reasons in my blog. Those who follow my blog, they can read that. But the point is, even those people in Kiev, they understand that something horrible will happen to them if Ukraine is basically designated as and they indeed start the war in Donbass, because the response will be devastating, and this time it might bring the regime change, and that absolutely opens the possibility for some people from the administration in Kiev ending up in the War Crimes Tribunal in Moscow. So they are not very eager to do that. And there are some still people in Ukraine who still have the idea how dramatic the abyss in the capabilities exist between Ukraine and Russia. This is not to mention, and this is the other fact which everybody forgets, there are forces of LDNR. They are significant forces. They are not just militias anymore. They are fairly well equipped and well organized and well trained armed forces. They are not very large, but they are very effective. And when supported by Russia's firepower, they can do a lot of damage. And no amount of Ukrainian troops will make any difference. But that's another thing. There is nothing worse than when the political scientist by education, or sociologist, or historian begin to wax strategic and operational and speak about some weapons. Okay, VSU, which is the armed forces of Ukraine, got javelins, they got some manpads, and sure, too bad for them. This is not how modern wars are fought. The main issue of the modern wars is targeting, and if I know the target and where it is, I know its coordinates, and I know its where it moves and how it moves, I will kill it. It's plain simple like that. This is how it works. So any kind of the accumulation, predisposition, pre-deployment, including rear areas, these are fat, big targets. And once you break enemies' C4 ISR, famous C4 ISR, computers, communications, control, command, and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, that's it. I mean, you get the bunch of the split and fringe, militarily doubtly or dubiously effective groups, which you mop up. That's how it works. I'm not talking about demoralization of being under the immense fire impact from the incoming weapons. And we're not talking about some artillery, we're talking about some things of nature like Iskander, and you don't want to be around that thing 200 meters around, because you're going to be having some huge health issues even if you survive. So that's demoralization, shell shock, and people refusing to fight. These evidently simple things. There are, of course, more complex ones. That's what I will be talking about when I will be talking about military technological means. These are the things which people who work in modern Western politics, they do not understand. None of them, or very few, in fact, very, very few, ever saw the real serious armed service. Even fewer of them ever were in the operational, let alone combat zones. So they have no clue. These are people who probably the most difficult things they ever experienced was probably not getting their favorite brand of turkey and having to go for the alternative. That's probably was the shock of their life. But that's about it. We're talking about this kind of people. So obviously they're not getting it. They cannot grasp it, and that will require separate talk on my part. But point is, today, the main thing which Lavrov did, obviously, he squeezed from Blinken commitment to give the written response. And in terms of the what I was talking about, military, industrial, military, economic potential, it is clear that the United States doesn't have any where Russia really cares about. And that's Ukraine, and that's the western borders of Russian Federation. And you cannot hide it. But that's how diplomacy actually works, at least in Russia. It doesn't work like this in the United States, because obviously the United States is not governable, being run or having several lobbies fighting for power. But in Russia, it's a pretty unified state, and diplomats do what president and what National Security Council tells them. And they are as serious conductors of the unified policy, in this particular case of Kremlin policy. And if Russian military says, oh yeah, you can start, writing, and, what I was told you about in the anecdote about Sergei Lavrov, and yeah, they will do it because they know, okay, we have a very good expert opinion and very good expert advice, so we coordinate and we act like this. As Deng Xiaoping famously rephrased, famous and beaten to death truism by Karl von Clausewitz, that the war is the continuation of the policy by other means. When Deng Xiaoping says that diplomacy is the continuation of the war by other means, these are basically two sides of the same coin, and that's what you're seeing on part of Russia. And United States can do absolutely nothing about it, and it now finds itself in this conundrum that it has to officially answer in written what Russia wants. If they want to accept it, which they will not, and then, well, again, I'll be making separate video on that issue. For now, however, my swelling becomes a little bit more painful, but it's okay. It's much better than it was 3 days ago. So that will be it for today. And as always, do not forget to subscribe and support me on Patreon. And that's it, guys. Have a nice weekend. I hope to talk to you with less swollen face, probably Monday or Tuesday. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.